I don't know about you, but I'm a little sick and tired of hearing about 2012 and the end of the world. I actually don't believe that there's going to be any end of the world. I believe that there's going to be an end of our old ways, the old patterns that we have, and a creation of new ways and new patterns. And within that, we're actually all having physical changes, having mental changes, and having spiritual changes. The biggest one, I personally believe, is a spiritual change. It's where we become more ethical, more conscious, more intuitive. And the shift can be explained simply, that we're shifting from this ego or mind or masculine control of force to a more of a feminine control of intuition, of heart, of form. And it's sort of a masculine control thing to a feminine allowance thing. And my belief is that, yes, there could be physical changes, and there could be, with that, mental changes, but I believe that the biggest change we're going to all see is a spiritual change within all of us, that we're all going to shift into being more ethical, more compassionate, more capable of following our intuition instead of just our mind. We'll remove the mind out of the way and let that take a back seat to what our heart really knows. That's what ethics are. Ethics come from your heart. Morals come from your head. It's like we have a moral obligation to be at war, but we don't have an ethical leg to stand on. There's no reason that we should be killing people when we can talk to them first. And we could, and we can, and we will have peace once we make that shift from that ego to the heart. And it's grace, it's allowance, it's thinking of we instead of just me, the ego. And so once we move beyond that ego, we get to a place where we are thinking of we. We are seeing ourselves in other people. We're seeing ourselves in nature. We're being thankful for everything, even the problems. So our relationship to nature changes. We actually don't desire to consume because we are aware or conscious of what we're doing by buying crap that we don't need and throwing it away a month or 6 months later, just discarding it. There is no away. There is no away. You buy a piece of plastic, it takes 450 years for that thing to finally decompose in half-life and turn back into some sort of element that's similar to dirt. 450 years. So what we're doing is polluting our world with crap. And so once we become conscious, we start to realize our connection with each other, seeing ourselves in other people, not needing to create war, but creating a better way of communicating with everyone. And then same thing with nature, creating a more harmonious balance with each other, because we see that the destruction that we could potentially have by being out of balance. We've already done that. It doesn't work. They say insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We've all got to support each other in becoming more compassionate. We've got to support Mother Earth and her resources. Many of them are not renewable. The oil we just pump out of the earth and we're running out of, well, 50 years from now, we're going to look back and go, we were insane. We were just gobbling up all these resources and we don't have any now. We'll actually be digging through our trash heaps, finding little pieces of metal and recycling them from the trash heaps. It's insane. So we have to all work together as a world where we come into balance with nature, where we come into balance with each other. I actually envision this world not to need borders, not to need governments, not to need huge businesses that control those governments Instead, for all of us to think about the globe and then act locally, to help support each other growing our own food, to create a more peaceful, harmonious environment, to work together to create peace between all nations or all peoples, and to also see that there is God within each one of us and within each blade of grass. There is God. So I actually believe the shift is within everyone and everything. It's also in the sun. We're all connecting to the sun, and the sun is changing its frequency. The earth is changing its frequency, and we are shifting with that, changing our frequency. So much like a butterfly, it starts off as a caterpillar, and it's got a million little legs going. Caterpillar has no idea what it's going to become, that butterfly. It has no idea. And for a little while there, it has to go into the cocoon. And it has to go through this primordial goo and this messy time of change. Well, I personally believe we're in that messy time of change right here, right now. And we're going to let go of being a caterpillar. We're going to let go, and we can't even imagine flight. We can't even imagine how incredible things can be once we let go of our old patterns or our old ways. And so I implore you to find within yourself anything that's a bad behavior or pattern that you no longer want, and discard it. Be aware of it. Become aware of it. Being focused that that is something I no longer desire, and let it go. The Hopi Indians have this great story. The story starts off something like this. This is all paraphrased. We've been talking for many years that this is the 11th hour. Well, it's no longer the 11th hour. This is the hour. This is the hour. We are in the river of life, and as we are in that flow of life, the waters of that flow of life, of that energy of flow, is rushing past us. And we're in that river, clinging on to the bank, clinging on to that place that we're so comfortable with, that we've been for quite a long time. We're clinging on to that spot. But as the waters keep rising and rising higher and higher, the pressure to hold on is getting harder, and it's hurting us. It's hurting us, and it's harder to cling on to that. And what we must do is let go. Let go and push off into the flow, into the changes, and see who's in those changes with us. See who's in the river of flow of life with us, and create a community around that, and celebrate. And know that the river of life will take us to an even better destination. That's what I believe the butterfly signifies. That we're changing from this caterpillar. We have to let go of our old patterns, our old ways, and then we can become this new butterfly. So much like the butterfly or the caterpillar changes into the butterfly, we're all having no idea that we are going to eventually become this butterfly, this new being. We have no idea of that yet, what being we're going to become. We can't even imagine it. All we're doing is tiptoeing through a little bit with our million little legs, and at some point we're going to go into this little goo, and that's this transformation we're going through, and I believe we're in the goo. And at some point we will come out as a butterfly. We'll come out evolved into a new being. And this doesn't happen on a day like December 21st, 2012. It happens in an era, and it's been happening since the 1960s. 1968, we had a major shift. We were singing about this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Very similar. It's age of Aquarius, they were singing harmony, understanding, unity. And that started in 1960s. 1968 was a revolutionary year. We've gone through that massive change, and we've had our ups and downs since then. But we're in another cycle where this new cycle, we're hopefully shifting again into a similar feeling that we had back then. So instead of this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, we are entering the age of Aquarius. And from my perspective, what Pisces is the age that we've been leaving, And that's part of the precession of the equinoxes. And with that precession of the equinoxes, it's about a 2,100-year cycle that we stay in each sign of the zodiac. So for the last 2,000 years, we've been in this cycle of Pisces, 2 fish, and that's one up and one down. And to me, what that means is judgment. We've been in a level of I'm good and you're bad, this bit of judgment, and polarization. And that led to war, borders, and some other things. And this Aquarian age that we're shifting into, I believe, is more of that harmony and understanding that we just spoke about. It's where we can all make this connection as we can see that within me and within you is the same wants and needs. That's for love, for joy, for continuing growth, and for safety and security and some other issues. And that collectively, once we shift to a place of community, that safety and security and so on will be not necessary to fight for. We can protect it by being a collective conscious, being awake, being aware of each other in a loving way, being kind. That's where the ethics come in again. It's a consciousness shift. It's where we stop thinking of just me and we think about we. We think about all. And with the indigenous, they have a prophecy, the eagle and the condor coming together, the eagle of the north. When the eagle of the north comes together with the condor of the south, we'll have a time of peace. And that's very simply when the mind and the heart come together, we'll have a time of peace. And that goes with North America and South America together. It goes with the person within all of us, of the mind and the heart, when they come together. And this is true for everybody, that we have to find a better balance between our mind control and ego that goes with that, and the masculine force and this feminine form where we follow our intuition, our heart, and we think about we. What it is we come to a more compassionate place within all of us, more ethical place within all of us. The compassionate place would be a place where we are finally seeing within everyone ourselves. We see ourselves within everything and everyone. We see it within nature. We see it within our enemy. And at some point, when you start to see yourself within your enemy, and you see that they actually want and desire the same things you do, and that there's an easier way to be in harmony than fighting, then all of a sudden we have a peaceful place. We see that everyone actually has the same desires. We desire, Maslow's hierarchy of needs say that the first thing is we need air and water and food and warmth and shelter, all this physical needs. Next thing is more mental needs. It's security, and that's a mental thing. I'm secure. It's making your mind up you're secure, and you know, there's some other things that go with that also. And then last would be a spiritual need. A self-actualization is what he called it. But it's where you actually become compassionate, and you see yourself in others. You love one another as you love yourself. Jesus said, do unto others as you would have done to you. That's compassion. So within this, I feel as though this consciousness shift, we have to acknowledge and understand that there are all of our fears. And there are three main fears in this world. One fear would be the physical fear that we just talked about. Physical fears would be fear of losing our life, fear of death. And once we overcome that, we actually can come to a better place where we actually can be in love with life itself. Instead of being in fear of death, we are in love with life. And that's our physical. The next fear would be more of a mental fear of losing my power. And the power is usually related to your job or whatever title your ego gives it. I'm a mother, I'm a father, I'm a, more often than not, I'm a business leader, I'm a whatever. And whatever that ego, it's all mental, whatever that fear is losing that power. When we get old, we get frustrated because we are no longer identified as that business guy. You're now a retired business guy. And it's a whole process you have to go through there.